Now, Canelo's clearly an A side. What do you think for the Gennady-Golovkin fight? Should Gennady-Golovkin bite the bullet, come down to 155, or should it be at the full 160?
See, I don't know, because it's hard to make 155 if you're a 160 pounder, you know? Like, you know, I don't know that Canelo can fight any real middleweights at 155 pounds. Like, I fight at welterweight, I can't fight at 142 pounds. If I can make 142 pounds, I'd be fighting a junior welterweight, you know? So I don't know that you're gonna get any real middleweights with the ability to make 155 pounds. I really question that. So if that's the case, Canelo will always be defending against non-middleweights, even if he has the middleweight title. So we'll see. It's not a matter of if he should or shouldn't. For me, it's a matter of if he even can, if he wants to. You know?
Why does he go down to 154 for Mayweather?
That's the thing. He puts his foot in his mouth. He calls out every 68-pounder except Ward. He calls out no 154-pounders except for Floyd. And then, you know, he gives people a reason to question him when he talks, you know? So, I mean, I really can't answer that question. You got to take that up with them. They put their own foot in their mouth when they talk. It's unfortunate. You know, Canelo is doing to Golovkin what basically Golovkin is doing to Ward. So as frustrating as it is for Golovkin to not get Canelo, now he knows what Andre felt with him. You know, so it's the same thing. So depending on which side you want to take, it's essentially the same matter of circumstances.
Canelo said that Golovkin, he needs to fight somebody. He needs to fight somebody that's going to complicate him. He compared his last 10 opponents to Golovkin's last 10 opponents. What do you think about Canelo saying that?
That's bullshit to me, because you can't force guys to fight you. Golovkin hasn't been in with the same caliber of guys as Canelo, because those guys don't want to fight Golovkin. That's it. So you can't put a gun at somebody's head and make them get in the ring. You can't compare the level of opposition when people won't fight you. It's the same thing at welterweight with Kell Brook. You know what I mean? Like, guys just aren't chomping at the bit to get in the ring with Kell Brook. He's that dangerous. You can't knock somebody for being so good that guys won't fight them, and then you say who they fight. Of course, who they fight. Nobody wants to fight them, including you. So how you gonna compare that?
You don't feel it, then it must be too real to touch. You'll never in your life try to knock the truth. The illest shit ever. Get ready, 'cause this is about to get heavy.
Trying to keep me out, trying to censor what I say, 'cause they don't like what I'm talking about. So it's wrong with the media today.
Prove I'm lying if I ain't correct.
What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. So Canelo, I was born ready. Spoke to ESPN Deportes. I want to talk about what he said and give my thoughts on the situation. Now, in the world of boxing, this has been going on for decades. Certain names become synonymous with other names, like Mikey Garcia, Yuriorkis Gamboa, or most notably Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. Now, Canelo versus Triple G, based on everything that has happened, those two names have become synonymous. So obviously they were talking to Canelo about his upcoming fight, Liam Smith, which is happening in September, and they also talked about or brought up Triple G, which these things happen when your name is linked to somebody. Whether you fight them or don't fight them, those two names are linked, at least for right now. Canelo said, "In my entire career, I have never run away from anyone, including him. A lot of people make him out to be the best, and that's clearly not the case. He hasn't fought anybody. Who has he knocked out? Who are they? That fight is eventually going to happen. When the time is right, the fight will happen with him, but we are going to make it clear that I am not going to give away advantages to anyone. I always gave away advantages in my career, and I will not give them away anymore." Canelo is saying basically, I'm the A side, you're not. When I fought Mayweather, I gave away advantages, and now it's my time. I'm the star. I run shit. I run shit here. You just live here. So he pulled Alonzo from Training Day. Now, I'm going to try to make sense of this whole mess, and it's very complex because I have mixed feelings. Some of what Canelo is saying, I agree with because it is true. When it comes to Gennady Golovkin, he is a great fighter. Do I think that Canelo or his team or both avoided Triple G? Yes, I do feel that way. I mean, how could you not feel that way? When he was the champion, he was supposed to have a voluntary defense with Amir Khan. Triple G was supposed to fight Dominic Wade, and they were supposed to fight each other, and that didn't happen. And it wasn't really because of Triple G's side. So, I mean, you have to blame Canelo and his side for the fight not happening sooner than later. That's one thing. But there are aspects of what Canelo is saying that is very true. And that's something I've been saying. And it's so funny to me that when I made videos before, like let's say when Triple G and Ward was the topic of conversation, I was all for the fight because we need to see Triple G in there with somebody like an Andre Ward, decorated, Olympic gold medalist, undefeated, just like Triple G, and that will really tell us everything we need to know about both fighters. But it doesn't look like Triple G's team wanted that fight, right? So what Canelo is saying is true, and I said that back then. Triple G's resume, he's in a division that is okay. It's not a division like welterweight. You look at welterweight, there are killers all around you. Any given day, one of those guys could pull the upset. You got Errol Spence Jr. You got guys like Danny Garcia, Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather. You got Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, Kell Brook up until he moved up to fight Triple G. You know what I mean? There's killers all around you. Those are good fighters no matter how you mix them. You look at heavyweight, you got Luis King Kong Ortiz, Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Vladimir Klitschko. You know what I mean? Those aren't gimme fights for anybody. You know what I mean? Klitschko has a lot of experience. So whether you think Wilder would beat Klitschko or Fury could beat him in the rematch, whatever, those are all good fights on paper. King Kong Ortiz, he could possibly upset any of those guys, right? He could upset the apple cart. But middleweight's not like that. Triple G obviously looks like the best fighter at middleweight. There's a couple of guys, but nobody, like, name a guy who's undefeated like an Errol Spence Jr. who hasn't been knocked out, right? Danny Jacobs got knocked out. David Lemieux's been knocked out even before he fought Triple G, right? Who? Billy Joe Saunders, and his resume is limited. You know what I'm saying? So it's just that division is to me, it's not deep. It's not deep like heavyweight or 147 or even 154. These are all deep divisions. So I agree with Canelo in that sense. Who has he fought? Because we haven't seen stylistically some of the chances. Like, let's say Golovkin has fought people that is taller than him, like Ishida, Gabe Rosado. Martin Murray was bigger, but those guys didn't really carry power. Two of those guys that I named were coming up from 54, and this was their first fight at 160. So, I mean, that's what Canelo was saying. Like, who are some of these guys? I literally had never really watched Dominique Wade. I heard the name in passing, but I never watched him before the Golovkin fight, and I covered that fight live, Golovkin versus Wade. So that's what Canelo was talking about. And ever since Austin Trout, Canelo has stepped up his resume. I will give him credit for that, because he fought Austin Trout, undefeated, slick style southpaw, who had beat Cotto, right? And then Canelo knocked him down and beat him, right? I don't agree with the open scoring, but hey, it is what it is. Austin Trout knew beforehand what the case was. He fought Floyd, clearly got dominated in that fight. Fought Alfredo El Perro Angulo off of a loss. They were both off of losses, but Angulo had been in there with Kirkland, had been in there with Edeslandi Lara, and he had hurt Lara, and then Canelo dominated him. And then Canelo, who else did he fight? James Kirkland, a guy who was off a Glenn Tapia win with a long layoff. He had beat Cotto, things like that. So without a doubt, Canelo has a better resume. I mean, if you try to argue that, then I really don't even care about your boxing opinion, because it means nothing to me. You can't tell me Mayweather and Edeslandi Lara. I'm not talking about win, lose, or draw. I'm just talking about who he stepped in with, right? Sugar Shane Mosley, Carlos Baldomir, all the guys, Austin Trout, Miguel Cotto. You can't tell me that Golovkin. And I know what people are going to say. They're going to say, oh, but no one wants to fight him. I mean, the bottom line is, if you have a certain style that people allegedly fear, it comes with the territory. Rigondeaux is another person. A lot of people don't want to fight him. You've seen people move out of the division. Quigg doesn't look like he wants to fight him. Frampton, Santa Cruz are fighting tonight instead of fighting him. They moved out of the division, things like that. But guess what? He still fought Joseph Egbeko, who was game as hell with Abner Mares in Abner Mares' prime, and Nonito Donaire, a guy who's bigger than him, a guy who's arguably stronger than him, who's fast, who had not lost in about 11 years. And now his first loss and his only loss before Rigondeaux was early in his career, like maybe in his first 5 pro fights, right? So that could happen if, you know what I mean, while you're acclimating to the pro. But besides that, Donaire was knocking out fools. The Fernando Montiels and guys like Prime, Vic Darcinians and stuff. He was knocking those dudes out. Jorge Arce, like Mexican Warriors, guys like that. So I agree with Canelo on certain points, and I agree with Triple G on certain points. And that's the problem with today's boxing, is it is a business, And there's a lot of double standards and a lot of hypocrisy from both sides. Like Canelo, Paulie Malignaggi said it best when I interviewed him. He says, you can't say who has he fought when you don't want to fight him. So I agree with Paulie on that. You know what I mean? How can Canelo on this ESPN Deportes interview say, oh, who has Triple G fought? And he wants to fight you and you don't want to fight him. So it's like, it's hard to hold that against him. But then there are things that Triple G side has done too, like avoid Andre Ward, or say they'll go down, they can fight anyone from 54 to 68, no problem, and demolish them all. And then when it comes down to the nitty gritty, you only will go to 54 for Mayweather. You won't go to 55 for Canelo. You won't go to 55 for Cotto, only Mayweather. So that's not what you said initially, right? So the whole thing, there's a lot of hypocrisy. You look at Golovkin's side, said, oh, why is he fighting Amir Khan, a guy 2 divisions down, is not good for boxing, not good for business? You know what I'm saying? He's saying these things like that when Canelo fought Khan, and then now he's fighting Kell Brook for whatever reason. I don't care if it's, oh, Chris Eubanks priced himself out or whatever. You're still fighting a welterweight who has not made any statements of note over welterweight. You know what I mean? He fought at 155 once against who? A no-name. And he's never fought at 160 as a pro. I'm not talking about sparring because I don't care about sparring. I've seen people look great. Like I've seen, I'm not going to say names, but I've seen people's sparring camps. They look great in sparring and they get knocked out in their pro fight. I've seen it. I've been in those training camps or around those situations where a media day or a sparring session, someone looked good and then they got knocked out in their pro fight that they were training for. So I don't care about that. Kell Brook, bottom line, he has not proved he's a great fighter at welterweight, but jumping up 2 weight divisions to fight the best middleweight, very tall order. We don't know how he'll deal with Golovkin's power, a guy who's naturally been fighting at that weight since an amateur, and we don't know how his power will move up, because Broner is a prime example of that, destroying guys at 130, 135. He moved up to 40 or 47, and his power hasn't really showed up the same. Little bit in the Maidana fight in the late rounds, a little bit, but not enough to stop him. And in the Sean Porter fight, in 1 round, in the 12th round, it showed up. But he couldn't stop guys like Carlos Molina, Emmanuel Taylor. He knocked him down, but I mean, he couldn't stop him. But guys in 130, 135 simply couldn't take his power. So we don't know about Kell Brook. So it's kind of tricky because, like I said, I give it to you raw cut and honest. I agree with certain things that Canelo's saying. Triple G does need those names. And I understand Cotto doesn't look like he really wanted to fight Canelo. But as a 34-year-old champion, you have to determine if it's worth it for your career to keep fighting guys like the Adamas and the Shitas and Martin Murrays that aren't really going to give you the recognition that you're striving for. And that's a team decision. That's something that they got to decide. Because Canelo, at a younger age, clearly has a better resume than Golovkin, right? You could say he avoided the fight and he's fighting Liam Smith. I agree with that. But he made the right career moves, or him having red hair or whatever the situation is, has put him in a position where he has a better resume, period, at age 26 or whatever age he is, and Golovkin's 34. And the other thing I don't understand when it comes to Golovkin is, I understand unifying the belts. Let's say Chris Eubank and his dad wanted operational control. That fight fell apart. You could still move up and fight one of these. Gilberto Ramirez, not now because he has an injury. I just seen him at the Crawford Postal fight. But when he was calling you out, he wasn't injured at that time. Guys like James DeGale, they said they would take it, but I didn't hear of an offer like, hey, we'll take James DeGale, and then James DeGale pass it up, and then you went to Kell Brook. That'd be something different. But the thing is, greats have done this where they move. Roy Jones moved up to heavyweight and then he moved back down, right? Guys like Floyd Mayweather moved up to 54 to fight Oscar De La Hoya. He didn't just stay up there and fight everybody at 54. He moved back down. He knows that's not his natural weight, so he fought at welterweight. Then he moved back up when another opportunity presented itself to fight Cotto. Then he moved back down. Then he moved back up to 152, a catchweight, to fight Canelo when that opportunity presented itself. So if Golovkin is a small middleweight, like they say, he can move up and then move back down and finish collecting the belts. You're not going to lose your spot, or you're not going to get stripped of your titles unless you don't defend within a certain amount of time. These organizations understand the business, right? Like, look at Amir Khan. I talked to the WBC president. He moved up to 155 to fight Canelo, which I was at that fight, and he moved back down, and he still didn't lose his mandatory position against Danny Garcia at welterweight. So the same rules apply for Golovkin, but for whatever reason, him and his team, they don't want to move up to 68. They're saying he knocks out cruiserweights and heavyweights and all this stuff, but they don't want to move up. We're going to stay put where we're comfortable and where our power is known. So that's a decision they got to make. So the Canelo Triple G situation, that's my best breakdown. They both have points that are right. I do think Canelo has avoided Triple G, and I do think Triple G's resume needs work and needs help. So if you can't get it by guys like Canelo, Cotto, or whoever, and you feel they're afraid, then you have to go to the next order of operation. I've never seen a fighter, I've seen many avoided fighters in my lifetime, but somehow, some way, they're able to get fights. And maybe it's going to take more money. Maybe it's going to take for Golovkin to get a slightly less purse so you can get more money to get a Danny Jacobs or Billy Joe Saunders in there. I don't know. I'm not his promoter, so that's not even my problem. But what Canelo's saying to me is true in terms of the resume. But I do agree with, like I said, Paulie Malignaggi, how it's hard for Canelo. It's just a lot of hypocrisy, to be honest. Mexican, we don't fuck around, and I invite him into the ring, but you don't want to fight him. So it's a big gray area for me, because some of what he's saying is true, but some of what he's done shows that he doesn't really want to fight him or his team. Let me know what you guys think. Drop it in the comment section. Make sure you like my video as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.